Since I can't be there today, I thought I'd record the review for you. I'll also put the review slides on Edmodo for you to access, and also a few other things as well. So, yes, you have a test tomorrow. And even though you may think you're the only one that has homework and tests, as you can see from the cartoon, Jeremy also thinks that nobody has more homework than he does. So we will review today. What I'm going to suggest that you do to get ready for the test is look through your notes, see if you have any questions about cells or the cell theory, the scientists, the microscope, organelles, prokaryotes, eukaryotes, all the different things that we talked about during the course of this unit. Write them down. Then look through your notes again and see if you can find the answers. Hopefully we'll be able to look back through the, listen back to the recordings if you need to that are already posted on Edmodo. Look back through the PowerPoints, see if you can find the answers to all the questions that you might have. So we started off learning about the cell theory, and so these are the kinds of things that you need to know about the cell theory. Who named the cell? Well, that was Robert Hooke. Remember, he saw little chambers in the cork that he looked at and decided they looked like cells in a prison or a monastery. The first person to see living cells in pond water, as far as we know, was Anton van Leeuwenhoek. We know because he wrote about it to other scientists. The cell theory is kind of the basic tenets or the basic understandings about what we know about cells. All living things are made of cells. Cells are the basic unit of structure and function in living things, and new cells come from pre-existing cells. The scientists who contributed to the cell theory were Matthias Schleiden, who was a botanist, Schwann, who was a zoologist, and Rudolf Virchow, who's the person who said that all cells come from pre-existing cells. Make sure you know those and what they contributed. Remember, the easy way to remember which one is which is that swan is an animal. Schwann sounds like swan, and so therefore Schwann is the one that studied animals, and Schleiden studied plants. We also talked about microscopes, and so as far as identifying the parts of the microscope, there will definitely be a diagram of a microscope on the test that will have some questions about various things about the microscope. So you'll be able to identify the parts of the microscope, what their functions are, know how you calculate total magnification. Remember, it's the eyepiece times the objective. What happens to the image when you look at it under the microscope? You should know that it's flipped upside down. If you move things closer to you when you're looking through the microscope, it's going to look like they're moving away from you, and so forth. Light microscopes and electron microscopes use electromagnetic waves to view the specimen, and the light microscopes use light, of course, and are limited by the size of the wavelength of light. Electron microscopes use a beam of electrons and are limited by the wavelength of the beam of electrons, which is a lot smaller than that of the light microscope. The type of microscope that does not allow you to view living specimens is the electron microscope, because the process of preparing specimens and the conditions in which you view them would kill the cells. Light microscopes can allow you to visualize both living and non-living cells. The levels of organization in living things, you should already know all those kinds of things: cell, tissue, organ system, and so forth. What structures do all cells have? Well, all cells have a cell membrane, they all have cytoplasm, they all have ribosomes. The two main types of cells, of course, are prokaryotes and eukaryotes. And you should be able to identify these structures not only by definition and function, but also by their appearance. So a cell wall is going to be outside the cell membrane. Cell membrane will be inside the cell wall of cells that have cell walls, or on the outside of the cell if it doesn't have a cell wall. You should be able to identify ribosomes. Most of the time, ribosomes look like little dots in the cytoplasm. In a prokaryote, the nucleoid region is going to be the center part of the cell where the DNA is located, and cytoskeleton elements may or may not be visible in the cells depending on the diagram that you're looking at. These are the major cell organelles that we talked about in class. You should be able to recognize the structure and identify the function of all of these different organelles, both in words and in looking at diagrams. There will be some cell diagrams on the test, most of which you probably haven't seen before, but you should still be able to identify these various things based on their locations and relative to each other and other things that are present in the cell. You need to be able to identify organelles by appearance and function, okay, and distinguish between prokaryote and eukaryote cells in terms of what they have and what they don't have. You should be able to tell the difference between plant cells and animal cells. The major difference is that plant cells have a cell wall and they have chloroplasts, and animals don't. You should also be able to approximate cell measurements given a scale. If I give you a scale telling you that the width of the field of view is, let's say, 100 units, whatever the 100 units happen to be, and I show you various things inside there and ask you to estimate the length of one, you should be able to use that scale to approximate the length of that structure. It shouldn't be hard. Don't make it hard. It really is pretty easy to do. There are also some review questions over past material on this test. Okay, 7 or 8. I don't remember how many are on there exactly. So you should be able to answer questions about covalent bonds, about water's polarity, about what kinds of elements and monomers you find in carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, what makes a fatty acid saturated or unsaturated, what makes a hypothesis valid, and how to determine how many atoms are in a molecule. Some of these go back to the beginning of the course, but it's good for us to go back and review some of these very important concepts time and again to keep them fresh in your mind. Here are a couple of questions from the concept check that goes with your textbook. Okay, the cell is sometimes described as a protein factory. Using the cell as factory analogy, which of the following accurately describes the functions of the endomembrane system? The ribosomes on the rough ER are analogous to the production line in a factory. The Golgi apparatus is analogous to the packaging and shipping department. The nucleus is analogous to the management offices, or all of the above. If you think about it for a minute, you'll realize that all of the above is the correct answer. Here's another one. The 3 domains of life described by biologists today include the bacteria, the archaea, and the eukarya. That means all other forms of life. What is the basic difference between the eukarya, or eukaryotes, and the prokaryotes, which are archaea and bacteria? A, the prokaryotes do not have a plasma membrane surrounding the cell. B, the prokaryotes use RNA and not DNA to pass on genetic message. C, the interior of the cell of eukaryotes is divided by internal membranes into specialized compartments. Or D, the eukaryotes engage in cellular metabolism while the prokaryotes do not. Once you have a minute to think about this, I think you'll realize the answer to this question is C. So, use your notes and all the material we've used in class to help you study for the test. The test has 40 questions. It has a couple of bonus questions, and you should not have difficulty understanding this. One thing that I didn't put in the review that you do need to also review is the endosymbiotic theory. You should have had a worksheet in class that you're going to work on, and I will post the key to that worksheet Thursday after school so that you can have access to it in case you missed that in class. But that's an important part of this unit as well, understanding where some of these organelles come from. Best of luck on your test. I hope to see you soon. Bye.